evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambhir. Some days in a vibrant democracy make judicial history. Today was one such day in India. The nation was waiting for Indian judiciary to adjudicate on two contentious issues, both inherited by independent India from the colonial rulers. Coincidentally, Britain has banished both these from its law books long ago. The Supreme Court has put one on hold. The battle against the other will go on for some more time due to a split verdict in Delhi High Court. I'm talking about sedition law and marital rape. Today, viewers, in a historic decision, the Supreme Court put sedition law on hold till the centre reconsiders the provision. But battle to criminalize marital rape in India will now be fought in the Supreme Court. Before I begin the debate tonight, let's tell you a few facts. According to data from National Family Health Survey conducted in 2019 to 21, 1 in every 25 women in India reported being subjected to sexual violence by her husband, often or sometimes. 1 in 5 Indian men surveyed by the International Center for Research on Women admitted to forcing their wives into sex. It happens. That's why there is a demand to criminalize it, because it goes unnoticed and unpunished. The Supreme Court in 2015 refused to entertain a woman's plea to declare marital rape a criminal offence, saying it wasn't possible to order a change in law for one person. Meanwhile, the High Court, Delhi High Court, delivered a split verdict today, while Justice Rajiv struck down the exception 2 that protects men who have forced non-consensual intercourse with their wives from criminal prosecution under Section 376 of the IPC. Justice C. Shankar disagreed, saying that the exception does not violate Article 14, 19 and 21. Both the judges, however, agreed to grant certificate of leave to appeal before the Supreme Court. Till then, nothing changes. The lonely battle for justice of a marital rape victim is going to continue. Now let's tell you how the situation is in other countries today. In Australia, rape in marriage became a criminal offence in 1976. Poland in 1932 was the first to have a law making it a criminal offence. In 1991, the House of Lords in the UK struck down its common law principle that a marriage contract implied a woman's consent to all sexual activity, and rape within marriage became a crime. In US, marital rape became a crime in every state by 1993. In 2002, Nepal got rid of the marital rape exception after its Supreme Court held that it went against the constitutional right of equal protection and the right to privacy. Why a progressive country like India is among 34 countries in the world where marital rape is not criminalized? Why is India reluctant to criminalize marital rape is what we are discussing this evening. Karuna Nundy, Advocate, Supreme Court, is joining us on the broadcast this evening. Karuna, thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. You're one of the lawyers fighting to criminalize marital rapes. In Delhi High Court, you fought the case. Are you disappointed with the verdict today? One judge said it's a crime, other disagreed.
Been a long battle, frankly, and since 2015 we have argued this case in 2 rounds because there was one bench before we completed arguments, and the acting Chief Justice at the time was shifted to the Petitioner High Court. I think that what makes this really urgent is that women are being raped as we speak, and the exception to Section 375 says that married rapists have a conjugal right to penal vaginal rape and also to anal rape and gang rape. Now, this can't sustain in another day, according to me, and we are extremely appreciative and welcome Justice Shakdher's very robust judgment, which records also the fact that there is no presumption against somebody is accused of rape. And we had also argued this. And 376, there's a presumption that the person is a relative, right? And Justice Shankar has said, as we know, that there is such presumption.
Apologies, there is some network issue that we are facing. We will try and reconnect with Karuna. Sorry, we're not able to hear you clearly. So we are just quickly trying to fix the audio with Karuna Nundy and get her back on this very, very important issue. And as I was telling earlier to you, that petitioners clearly are feeling very disappointed because for them it has been a long battle and there were high hopes given the kind of statements we had heard from the Delhi High Court while the hearing in this matter was also underway, and there were hopes, but Delhi High Court today delivered a split verdict on criminalization of marital rape. It still is not a crime in India if a wife is raped by her own husband, and the Delhi High Court delivered a split verdict. The petitioners were seeking criminalization of marital rape in the country. Now the ball is in the apex court. Supreme Court will be deciding on this particular issue, and both the judges, remember, agreed to grant certificate of leave to appeal before the Supreme Court, as well as matter involves substantial questions of law. Let's try and go across to Karuna Nundy if she is back with us on the broadcast. Karuna, apologies for that network issue that we were facing earlier. Yes, so I was trying to understand from you what next, because we were hoping that just like the sedition law saw an important verdict today, a big development, a historic development happened on sedition law, something will happen on this issue too in Delhi High Court.
One thing I can assure you is that the fight is not going to flag. We are not demoralized. We understand that sometimes these fights are longer. The difficulty is that, as I said, married women are being raped as we speak. Women are being raped as we speak. And the exception to Section 375 says that married rapists have a conjugal right to penile vaginal rape and also to anal rape and gang rape. This is what's happening as we speak, and this is the urgency. Women have come with the Constitution in our hands, and we will, of course, get it.
Right. Now, of course, the, matter will be going to the Supreme Court. I remember in 2015, the Supreme Court refused to entertain a woman's plea to declare marital rape a criminal offense, saying it wasn't really possible, to change a law for one person. Are you hopeful now?
There are a number of judgments that have been passed since then. There is the Joseph Shine judgment, which speaks of the sexual autonomy of women in marriage. There is the Puttaswamy judgment that explicitly speaks about a woman's right to bodily integrity and intimacy in decision-making that concerns the body. There is an Upheld judgment that speaks about the right to Articles 21, 14, 15, and 19 in the context of citizens' decision-making over the body and sexual activity. And I think that the task is there's much less to determine now, because I think much of the groundwork has already been laid by in a number of constitutional benches. So, 5 judgments. And this would only need a division.
Right. Karuna, requesting you to stay on with us while there is still some audio trouble. We'll try and fix that and get Karuna back on the broadcast. Meanwhile, let's also welcome other guests who are joining us on this debate tonight. We have Ranjana Kumari, women's rights activist, director CSR and chairperson WPC. We have with us Lalita Kumaramangalam, former chairperson NCW, live with us. Colin Gonsalves, senior advocate Supreme Court, joining us. Deshrata Nigam, advocate Supreme Supreme Court, also with us on the broadcast. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Colin, Gonsalves, your first reaction to the verdict today?
Represented a woman, petitioner, who actually was raped many, many times in her marriage and brutalized very badly. And she looked so sad and so disappointed because she's been struggling for the striking down of this exception to rape for maybe over 7, 8, 9 years of her life and suffered terribly in terms of physical injuries and so on. I'm very disappointed because it's pretty straightforward. All across the world, courts have set aside this exception. In America, in Canada, in the UK, case after case of the superior courts of so many countries setting aside the exception to marital rape and saying rape is rape. Marital rape is rape. And many countries have abolished the provision altogether. They've repealed the marital rape exception long back. So India, which has such a wonderful judiciary, and the Delhi High Court is one of the leading high courts in the country, that they should have such a difference of opinion on something so straightforward, and so anachronistic, it's obsolete. It should have been done a long time ago. I must say there'll be many people in this country and tens of thousands, if not millions of women who will be very sad today to hear that the section still survives on the statute.
Well, absolutely. And that is the reason why we are having this debate as well today, because as it was mentioned by a lawyer as well during the hearing in this particular case, 5 minutes before marriage, it is called as rape. 5 minutes after marriage, it is not considered as rape. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, how will you like to react today to this verdict? Were you also anticipating a verdict of this kind? Are we, as a society, ready to accept a woman's consent?
First of all, let me say that personally, I'm very unhappy with this judgment because, women to get battered in their marriages much more than we know and much more than is ever admitted. And but unfortunately, I can understand, and I'm not saying that I agree with what that particular judge said, that a huge number of people in society, not just men, a lot of women also, will say that as the burden of proof lies with the person who has been raped, it will be impossible to find proof. But this has been said about every law, every amendment in a law that has to do with the autonomy of women. I do not think that marriage means automatically yes to any form of exploitation. And when a woman is forced to have sex against her will, it is rape. There I agree with Mr. Gonsalves. And I'm not talking politics here. I'm talking about the fact that any woman must have enough autonomy to be able to have a happy marriage. If she's to have a union, and a marriage is a contract and a union, then she must have a certain degree of autonomy. Otherwise, no human being can be happy, regardless of sex, caste, gender, etc., all the rest of it. But in this case, the truth also is that there is an enormous number of people I'm talking only about India, I'm not talking about the other countries, though it exists there too. There is a huge amount of opposition to the fact saying that if we bring this in, then what will happen is marriages will start breaking up, divorce rates will go up, etc. Personally, I would say, you can go stuff that somewhere. I'm sorry to use slightly rough language. But the fact is that one of the points made by the judge that the burden of proof it'll be very difficult to prove, one. And two, the fact also is that, look at our police stations even today. Even if the law does come in, I don't know, it'll help an enormous number of women eventually. But immediately, I don't think we'll see that much of positive, movement at the grassroots. Even today, when women are bashed up in the houses and they go to the police station saying domestic abuse, half the time they are told that just, go home, solve it yourself, ghar jao. in Tamil. I mean, that it's a personal problem. Don't come to us. We have so many other problems to solve. So even if the law is passed, my request to the lawmakers and the upholders of the law, especially the police, is that you must give the woman the benefit of the doubt. 99% of the time, women are not going to say, I've been raped, when they haven't been raped. I mean, in every law, there are certain amount of misuse of the law, but it's ridiculous to say that we cannot pass this law or agree to this law becoming, an amendment in a law because we are afraid, that the law will be misused. So personally, I feel that, but I hope that soon better sense prevails. The government has a point when it says it has to involve more people as stakeholders, because there's going to be a huge upcry if the government just turns around and says, any government, not just state or center, but anybody, that this law must come in. But personally, I'm for the law.
Okay, you are for the law, but Ranjana Kumari, the case has been going on for quite some time. Yet today we have come to a situation where nothing changes for a woman who is being asked for forceful sex in her marriage against her consent.
Debate started with Verma Commission's presentations that we made to Verma Commission, and it was incorporated into the recommendation which was presented to Parliament. And then the Parliament committee, Cabinet Committee made it exception. That is, rape in marriage was, just exception was added there. Now, the whole issue at the moment is much more, there is a progression that I'm seeing in this whole debate, because when you see that in 2015, Supreme Court didn't want to take a stand on this issue. Today, at least one judge has very clearly seen and has stated that it is violation of Article 14, it is a violation of human rights of women, it is, so I think there is, and also that there is a request for larger consultation, which government should engage itself in. So that's another step that is very important. Of course, for the victim who really has complainant who has gone to the court, it is a big disappointment. It's big disappointment for all of us. But at the same time, when judge says that there is no evidence, I think in the Indian Family Health Survey is an evidence. 1 out of 25 women are saying that we have been experiencing rape in marriage. It is a huge data. When you go across the country and start collecting this information, already we have this data. And also, of course, a private institution, but certainly has studied, and men are saying that 1 out of 5 men are saying that, look, we have engaged in raping our women. So I think it's really nothing to do with the information level. It is nothing, today's age and time. We cannot say that we cannot legislate something to protect our women because we don't have the sufficient information or sufficient data to talk about it. Now, second point, which is very important for Indian context, I'm not going for what is happening globally in many countries that they have made rape in marriage as a crime, but Indian context, marriage is sacrosanct, fine? For a lot of Indians, it is, when you look at all the scriptures, everything is sacrosanct. So in something which is sacrosanct, can you violate the other partner? Can you really, are you allowed? Is rape in marriage a sanction? Marriage is not a sanction to rape your wife. There is absolutely, but then why men are doing it? And if somebody is doing it, it is committing a crime. So this crime needs to be punished. And we have maintained that from the Nirbhaya rape case presentation till now, that look, it has to be criminalized. So we have moved a few steps ahead. Hopefully the Supreme Court will consider the matter and will hear everybody. And also in the larger consultation, we all will get a chance to produce the data, to produce the information, and also to argue it and to give the reason why we consider it that it should be criminalized. And hopefully government then will change its stand and we are going to get this law in place. This exception has to be removed. Because what we are dealing with day-to-day cases of women. So
you are hopeful. You see what happened today as a positive development in this fight, this lonely fight of marital rape victim in India. Deshratan Nigam, a woman remains a woman even after she's married. If Heena, domestic violence and cruelty.
Heena, we have moved a step ahead. That's all I'm saying. we have moved a step ahead from not
Yes.
accepting it as an issue where men are engaging in crime to at least opening up the whole discussion and taking it at a higher level. And just making a statement that, look, it is violation of democratic rights of women.
Yes,
Article
absolutely.
14.
Now, Deshrata Nigam, as I was saying, a woman remains a woman even after she's married. So if domestic violence and cruelty by husbands is recognized as a crime, then why not marital rape? What changes? And why is it taking so much of time?
In fact, one is a matter of principle, where I agree. Second is the reality of this country. The reality is India ready for this law? That is the biggest issue which is coming. Otherwise, Parliament would have enacted long time back. And Delhi government's stand in the Delhi High Court itself was that there are existing laws to deal with such situation, and therefore the exception should not be struck down. So there are governments which don't want it, and there are people who want it to go. And the wider consultation, as everybody was saying, has to be done once the parliamentarians feel the pressure and they think that their vote bank wants it. It is bound to come in the parliament. However, at the same time, if we look at the entire issue, these things happen within the four walls of a bedroom. And if there is a violence which can be easily medically examined, then it's very easy to prove. Otherwise, it is his words versus her words. That's one of the most difficult things, especially in our society where marriage is considered sacrosanct. Then the entire issue boils down to the, public opinion. The courts may strike it down and the new law may also come out. But how far it is going to be implemented in future will again be a problem. So all these issues considered, I think the law must come through Parliament. Whether it is struck down by the Supreme Court or not is a matter the time will tell. But the fact remains, India, it appears to be not yet ready for this kind of a law. Otherwise, in principle, it's a very sound principle.
Okay, so India, you feel the Indian society specifically is not ready for this kind of a law. Colin Gonsalves, now there are two issues here that I want you to address. One is the argument that criminalizing marital rape is going to break this institution of marriage too tough to demolish. And second, repeatedly we are hearing about the burden of proof. How will you like to address these issues?
Hey, we have a UK Parliamentary Committee report when they repealed the law in the UK. And many of the objections taken in India today were taken at that stage. For example, the speaker just before me said, well, marital rape takes place in the four corners of a bedroom. But the fact is that rape generally takes place not in Pragati Maidan or in public. Rape generally takes place in private. So you have the man's word, you have the woman's word, and courts have become very adept at deciding who's speaking the truth. So this notion that one is private and therefore you can't prove it, and the other that is public and therefore you can prove it, is a totally wrong presumption. What else did you ask me? You asked me two questions, I think.
Yes, one was that this argument that we have been hearing since day one, that criminalizing marital rape is going to break this institution of marriage. Is it too tough to demolish? And second was on the burden of proof.
Yeah, let me answer that. That will break the institution of marriage. Somebody said, I think you said, that it is 1 out of 25 women who face marital rape. In the UN report, which we produced before the court, where a survey was done of men in UP, Rajasthan, and other states, 50% of men in UP and some 40% of men in Rajasthan said that they had sex with their wife, whether they liked it or not. So now let's look at this institution of marriage, this great, sacred institution of marriage. It is an institution where roughly half the married women in this country, almost every night, are raped by their husbands. When they protest, they will still be forcibly had sex with. Such a large body of millions of Indian women every night, keeping quiet, maybe crying, maybe whimpering, maybe feebly protesting, and their husbands go on and on. It is time that this very foul institution of marriage, as we know it, must be changed. The institution of marriage is not necessarily foul. But the way it is in India, where a man feels, I've got a marriage certificate. You can't say you don't want to have sex with me. I have a right to have sex. And that is the foul culture prevalent in our country and many other countries. It's that foul culture and custom which now we want to stop forever. And we must get rid of these cliches. Sacred institution of marriage. Oh, it happens in private, this happens in public. Oh, it's so difficult to prove. And the reversal of the burden of proof is there in rape cases in the country, right throughout. And judges are able to make out who's telling the truth, who's telling lies. A woman who's been genuinely raped and who's speaking from her heart, the judge can make out. And if you're fabricating a case, the lawyer cross-examining you for half an hour or 1 hour will make you appear like a real liar. It's not difficult. The legal system is used to this thing for 10, 20, 30 years. So it's not difficult at all to prove marital rape, not difficult at all.
Absolutely. And Deshratna Nigam, marriage certificate is not like a license to rape the wife. It is also about balancing the rights. So while we are talking about rights of a husband, there are also rights of a wife that the courts need to look at, that the society also now, needs to consider very, very seriously.
Heena, in fact, there are two discrepancies in the statistics. On one hand, the women, 1 out of 25 are saying so, and the 50% men are saying so. So these statistics cannot be relied in the court of law, one. Now, secondly, the other rapes and the marital rape, let me put the distinction whether it can be proved or not. In the case of other rapes, there could be semen identification and test can be done. There could be other tests to recognize all that the rape has taken place. Such things will not be counted in a marital rape because semen and all, this is standard part of the intercourse between man and wife. And there are other issues. However, if there is a violence associated with it, it can easily be proved. So it actually becomes very difficult and hence you cannot compare it with other rapes. Now, as a matter of principle, so far as rights are concerned...
But Nigam, if other countries have already abolished it, why can't it be done in India? Why is India among 34 odd countries which are still giving this sort of an immunity to husbands?
Again, I'm saying as a matter of principle, I don't think anybody disagrees on this panel. But the fact is, are the people of this country ready about it? That is the issue, the larger issue I have raised, and that requires a very wide consultative processes. Like Delhi government has taken a different stand, which is generally not being shown on the TV. But the fact remains that there are other states also. The consultative processes that the central government was saying has to be done, and the bill should be tabled in the parliament as soon as possible. And this split verdict has given time to the central government to finish its consultative processes as soon as possible and bring out the bill in the parliament. And I think that's the correct way to look at it.
Okay. Now, Ranjana Kumari, are we even ready to have this debate? Because when this hearing was going on in the High Court, in Delhi High Court, at that time also, Centre did not want to take a stand. Centre tried to suggest that, it needs wider consultation. So are we even moving in that direction? What needs to be done now to make people begin to think about the issue of consent here when it comes to a wife?
Well, anything you want to do for women in this country, in our country, has been difficult. There is never a time when you want to really give women full rights, whether Constitution gave it on the eve of the independence, till date we are struggling for everything, to protect ourselves against domestic violence, to have sexual harassment at workplace, everything we had to fight to get. And now, even in this case, we are fighting. We are preparing ourselves to present. We did make presentations to Justice Verma Commission, and we will be doing it again when the wider consultation actually starts. But at the same time, I totally disagree that burden of proof already, in the law, it has already been incorporated when it comes to sexual assault law. It's already there. That proof has to be by the assaulter, not by the victim. So this is very clear. So what is the confusion about that? If a woman is saying it, then the man has to prove that he did not do it. So that's something which is already. And second thing, as we know, I'm sure Advocate Nigam is very learned advocate. He would know that sexual assault law has already been broadened. The definition of assault has already been looked at, not just by penal penetration, but also many other things. And many cases that we have received in our counseling centers, women are talking about abnormal behavior of their husband in terms of sexual intercourse, which is what they are troubled with. So I don't think in the name of sacrosanct marriage, we can allow men in our country to sexually abuse and assault women and also brutalize women. It's not something that we are saying that, look, I mean, how many women, how many men? I think we have large instrument to collect the data. We can collect the data, especially, Government of India can do it if they want. But at the same time, instead of saying that how many women are accepting to get beaten up, how many men are saying it's okay to beat up women, let's collect these real data and let women come up with that. So there is no quarrel about that. We're not saying that what data, but genuinely the issue is about how much should we allow our men in the name of marriage to brutalize our women in the bedroom? Is this
Can I come in for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
10 seconds.
So just one second.
Okay, Deshwata Nigam wants to respond, then Lalita Kumar Mangalam.
Yeah, okay. Let Mr. Nigam respond.
The fact is, the burden of proof has shifted to the accused in POXO cases, where the
even in sexual assault case,
child is involved, not in the cases where it is more than 18 years of age. So therefore, that distinction is still maintained. And secondly, instead of making the rape man by wife, it should be spousal rape, both sides. That should be as a matter of principle established, because there have been cases which has come to my light, and maybe not in those numbers, but the fact is, if it is made neutral, in the sense it is, instead of rape by man to wife, it is a spousal rape, that would probably, make it more acceptable in the eyes of the society.
Well, nobody is objecting to...
I'll get Colin Gonsalves to respond to that, but before that, Yes, Ranjana Kumari, quickly finish your point.
No, I'm very quickly, just in one line. I think there is this presumption which has been incorporated in sexual assault law also. So please, sir, look into it and try to, kind of understand what we are saying at this moment. And secondly, also that your whole objection about, the law being neutral, law is made for people who are really suffering and who are the victims, who really want justice in society. In sexual harassment law, you can say, okay, men are being harassed by women in the offices. Why do you have to have a law for women only? In domestic violence law, you can say, why to have a law for women only? So laws are given to people really who are asking for justice or who need justice. And I'm sure I don't need to re-emphasize that, but that's the whole issue at the moment, that women are suffering in the name of marriage, right, which is supposed to be sacrosanct, and they are being brutalized. So what do you do about that?
Men are suffering too. So therefore make it neutral.
Yes, and there are cases, it is happening, it is going unpunished, and that is why there is a demand coming that it needs to be criminalized. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, time and again, the center has said that wider consultation is required. Are our lawmakers even ready to discuss this particular issue? Because the kind of statements that we have got so far from various members of parliament and leaders who are part of the BJP, they suggest that this is going to destroy this institution of marriage. For example, BJP leader Sushil Modi had also said the same thing. Criminalizing it will end the institution of marriage. Are we even ready? What will it take to people begin talking about it? Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, she's muted.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
your side is
Okay. Okay. I don't. I
yeah.
think there's some network issue. We'll try and
Yeah,
reconnect with
no.
Lalita
It seems
Kumaramagalam.
it
But
seems
let me try and go.
one sec. It seems better now.
Yes.
Now,
Go
actually,
ahead.
I agree with some of what every one of the other esteemed panelists have said. One is that we need to make the law acceptable. Two, I really don't think this country, most of the men in this country, regardless of whether they are politicians or bureaucrats or whatever, are ready for this law. Three is that, yes, the burden of proof in most cases when it comes to minor rape is, it's already under illegal that the burden of proof is on the accused, not the accuser. But the fact is not that. Aside, you don't, every law that has been brought in to protect women, there have been arguments against it, including especially something like the Prevention of Child Marriage Act, which everybody knew was wrong. But it is, it is one of the landmark laws that was passed by Parliament. And in one thing, I agree with Deshnathanji, that it's probably the best way to bring it in is to get Parliament to pass it. But if we wait for that, I don't know if that will happen in my lifetime or not. Because it is an uphill task to say. In India, it's presumed that when a man and woman get married, the man owns the woman, everything about her, which is totally unfair. And there's no equality in that. Even today, in most marriages, I'm sorry to have to say it so bluntly, equality is a distant dream. And women don't talk about the problems they have in their marriage even today, perhaps in certain counseling sessions, but they are by and large the vast minority of women in this country. I have worked for over 30 years with women across the board, rich, poor, educated, caste, creed, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. Women do not want to talk about problems in their marriage because right from day one, probably even intrauterine, they are taught that marriage is a holy thing. It's a woman's job to make sure the marriage works, etc., etc., etc. It's fairly obvious that I don't agree with it because I'm talking so strongly about it. But I really feel that this law must come in. For it to come in, I would hope both state and central governments ensure that they follow a path where eventually it will come in. Acceptability or not, once the law is in, eventually it will become acceptable. Look at what happened with even the Justice Verma Commission's recommendations, etc. Ranjana will also, tell you how much we had to struggle to even see that those were accepted. Even now, there is so much resistance to anything that we say about, protecting the rights of a woman in any situation, age situation, in marriage, out of marriage, so many, ways in which women continue to be literally ground under the feet of patriarchy. But in this case, I hope that now that at least one judge, as again Rajana pointed out, shows sort of empathy for this, I hope that, and the government seems to be veering towards the fact that they will have to take a stand, and therefore they have to, ensure that wide consultations take place. I only hope they don't take place forever, and that the whole thing gets done within a specific period of time where hundreds of women who are under, under threat, so to speak. And I'd like to say, one of the things about a law also is the fear of breaking the law is there. If a law like this comes in and it is widely publicized, many men who presume that they can, have sex with their wife, whether she likes it or not, any form of sex, etc., will at least think twice about it. And there will be a decrease in this, whether it comes out in data or not, especially data that if they think they're talking to the government, they'll probably never say the truth. They won't come out with these uncomfortable facts, but it will come down. The threat of being actually taken to court, especially in something as heinous as this, as something as shameful as this, not more than heinous, shameful. Ultimately, that's the thing that seems to get men to, back off, or any, not just men, any aggressor to back off. The shame of, being actually named and shamed, so to speak. If a law comes in, we will probably see, I'm not saying immediately, but over a fair period of time, that at least the risk that women face of such behavior from aggressive husbands will go down. And that's a very important fact.
Absolutely. And Colin Gonsalves, good men really don't need to worry even if the law comes. And this clearly is going to act as a deterrent. Are you hopeful now? Because now the ball is in Supreme Court and probably this matter will be referred to a larger bench. Do you think maybe if we have a woman judge in the bench, probably things might, begin to change?
I am absolutely sure that the Supreme Court is going to do away with this exception, 100%. Because it's the tide of history, and the Supreme Court can't act contrary to the tide of history. Whatever the personal views of judges are, it's like an avalanche or a torrent of water, and it is going to sweep away all these obsolete ideas very, very quickly. And I want to say one thing, I'm very optimistic. Why? Where do we get this idea that the nation is not ready for change? If you ask women in the country, poor women, illiterate women, educated women, I have a feeling they will vote for change. And as far as the rest of the country is concerned, remember that 50% of the population, or 40%, is below 30. So you have women as a powerful force, and you have the younger generation as a powerful force. I don't think we are living in the period of sati and all these traditional horrifying practices. Even practices like Sabrimala, menstruating, don't come into the temple. I think the time has come and India will change, and the Supreme Court will bring about that change and stop all this nonsense where women are made the subject of discrimination and the subject of violence. It will change. It must change. India can't survive as a nation, as a modern nation, as a globalized nation with these kind of rotten ideas.
Absolutely. And all eyes are now going to be on Supreme Court. I would like to thank all my guests for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Appreciate all of you for joining us.